Alice Brink and David Peachy here, and we've worked all day to come up with a good design we feel fills the bill for a mask that is hugging the face and also has a metal piece in the nose so that it can be a little more protective. And here come the directions for it. You'll begin by collecting the supplies that you'll need, and I've gotten some beautiful fabrics, some that are fun for kids, men and women. And today I'll be sewing on this fabric with white thread so you can see what's going on. I have my speed cutter measuring ruler and cutting board, and then 1/4 inch elastic. And if you can't find it, we've got a save. If you can't find it, just cut it. And then small coated paper clips, a fork, more about that one later, and a rotary cutter that works for this kind of speed cutting method. And then a pair of scissors. And of course, my trusty sewing machine. All right, so we did some prep, and you'll see that I cut 24 7-inch lengths of 1/4 inch elastic, and this is where the speed cutting techniques are lifesavers. So I can use this 1-inch grid on my speed cutting board and quickly, without measuring each one with an old-fashioned tape measure and going through all that, I can accomplish that pretty quickly. I also was able to cut the selvage edges off of my material. You want to remove these kind of thicker edges that run along the long side of your fabric. And then now we're going to figure out what we do with this fork. So my boyfriend and I were kind of pondering how to make the mask better. And one of the things that was missing in the other patterns that we saw online was a nose clamp, or some way to keep all the germs out a little bit better and make it a little form-fitting and snug against the face. So what we're going to do is create this little guy that's going to go inside, and it's going to fit on the nose like that. So to do that, I was trying to brainstorm how we could do it. So we use these small paper clips that have the plastic coating, and if you bend them out kind of on their bend, it comes out straighter. And we have a relatively straight piece of coated wire now. And I'm using the fork because I have jewelry making tools, but not everybody does. And this works great. If you can see that, I'm just sticking the end through and twisting it around, and that creates a soft edge that won't poke through the fabric. All right, so I have all my materials prepped. That's the idea of this speed cutting and sewing method. So I've got my fabric laid out here, and I know that it's 12 inches between 15 and 27. So I'm going to use my rotary cutter and back up just a little bit and make one quick cut, and that section's done. And this section is done. Once you learn this technique, you can multiply it. So maybe you'll be working with 4 yards at a time. That's fine. But this will be a nice example. So out of 1 yard of fabric, I can get 12 masks pretty darn quickly. So now I'm going to take my first piece of fabric and a little sip of tea. For good measure, and I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch hem along the long edge of this fabric, and I'm going to do so the whole idea of the speed quilting method is that you're doing things in series, so you're not cutting as many times, you're not trimming thread as many times. So I've come to the end of this first long edge, and I'm going to feed the next one right into it. I'm still going to back stitch the end of that, and I'm going to feed this one right after it like that. Whoops, little back stitch, and that keeps us going. And we'll repeat that idea again and again until we're finished, that you do the same action repeatedly so that it speeds it up. And I'll see you in a minute. So here's a nice measurement to know about to do speed quilting or speed sewing. Notice that this hem I'm creating is actually 1/2 inch. So you're going to see these marks on your machine. That's, there's a 1/2 inch out here. That means it's a 1/2 inch from the center of where the needle is out to here. When I sew here and I leave about 1/8 of an inch between the edge of my fabric here, which is actually the edge of the left side of the presser foot, the stitch line is going to go in this right along this line. And then look over here, I have just a little bit of the fabric peeking out. And that pretty much makes a perfect 1/2 inch right there. All right, so we've cut our 4 lengths that are 12 inches, I'm sorry, 3 lengths. 36 divided by 12 is 3. We have our strips that are hemmed with our 1/2 inch hem, and we've laid them out, we've stacked them one on top of the other. So what we're going to do now is cut our 9-inch lengths. So I'm going to line this up on the 27-inch line. I have my edges relatively even, top and bottom, and I'm lining this up so it's square. And I'm on the 27-inch line, so I can cut on the 18-inch. And I'm going to have my 9-inch wide adult size mask. So I'm going to post the child size mask along with this. And if you were doing the child size, you would cut 10-inch wide strips, and then you would cut them 7 inches wide. But I'm doing the adult now, so I'm going 9 inches across, and this is going to be the part that goes across the face, horizontally. I leave that little end. You can cut. Okay, so this is our last 9 by 12 piece. This is our 12 length, and you notice we have this left over. We can still use these to make masks, so I'm going to put it aside to use later. All right, now we're ready to start assembling. So I'm going to get all my little supplies that I prepped and get them close to me. So I have my fabric stacked, and I've got my hemmed edges at the top and bottom. And what I want to do is fold these over so I find the halfway point. And I'm going to finger press that. That's another time saver. I'm going to make that little crease. It's just a guide for me. So hems are top and bottom. And what I'm going to do is sew this elastic to the right side of the fabric. Yes, I really mean to do that. And I'm going to sew it first right below that little crease, and I'm going to tuck it in. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge, but I want to make sure that when I'm going to make this measurement a little bit shorter than those other seams or hem I was making. I'm going to just tuck it in, and I'm going to back stitch one, that's the second one, 3 times over that. And I just wanted you to see what that looks like. So the elastic's almost to the edge, and I've got it back stitched just like that. And now I'm not cutting that thread. This is another time-saving thing, and I'm going to make sure this elastic stays flat, and it's going to go right down here at the edge of the mask so that it holds it tight against the face. And again, I'm going to leave, it's going to be sewn 1, 2, 3 times. I'm going to put that there. I go there, and I'm going to sew 1, 2, 3 times through. And in my time-saving thing, I'm going to do my assembly line and keep going. So I'm going to finger press here. I'm going to. All right, so you can see that I've got these. Well, not that one because whoops. but I've got these sewn together in twos, and I'm continuing on with my speed quilting. But I just realized if you want to really be a ninja on this thing, so I've sewn two together here, or in tandem, not together, but I have my elastic on the first one on its bottom half and this on its top half, if you will. And then I can just pull that one out of the way a little bit and get the next one going just past my finger fold on my halfway point, which I'm going to check, and sure it is. Yeah. So I've just saved a little more time and thread if I do it that way. So I'm going to place my elastic and do my 1, 2, 3 threads, and then just zip down. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's going to be all hidden down to the other edge, and tuck this guy in. I've got my needle down in my fabric so I can move my presser foot, and I'm going to tuck that guy in and get that sewn. 1, 2, 3. Will be 3 in a minute, and the next one can just butt up right against that. So I can save even more time by not cutting all those threads right now. And the reason I'm talking about time is it sounds like we've got about a week to 2 weeks to really get ready for what's coming. And there just is not enough equipment to go around. And even if you just use this for a personal mask to help you remember not to touch your face, to help your kids remember not to touch their faces, or to wear it once while you're out and then throw it in a safe place and sterilize it, wash it immediately, then you're gonna be a little more well armed. Plus, you're gonna help the rest of your fellow countrymen not get infected. And another thing, I'm gonna go ahead and sew that. What's going to be nice is if any of these are left over, and after this is all over, then they can be donated to cancer centers or children's hospital, wherever, just to continue to help. So anybody with immune compromised system, that kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to finish this up and I'll be back with you in a minute. All right, so I have a nice pile of joined face masks here with elastic on one side. Now we need to flip them around and get it on the other side. So make sure that you're sewing the elastic on the same half of this piece. So this is the 12-inch measurement. We're down in the lower sixth of it. We're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. And now you have the idea of how you can manipulate and turn the fabric, not be a slave like that's there. I don't care. I'm not fatally wasting tons of thread. And I'm going to go ahead and as these come around again, attached, I'm going to go ahead and sew them together. So I'm going to get all my elastic on all my masks in a pretty short order. So I missed my finger pressing on that one, so I'm going to do it now, right there. And this is not an exact science. It doesn't have to give you a headache. If you are a pinner and you like to pin, you can go ahead and do that. You can take any of this, of course, and make it your own. Somebody had some ideas that I built upon, and I'm sure you can improve upon mine. And we're going to go ahead around the barn. And I'm just going to continue attaching the elastic so that I'm winding up with pieces that look like this. And I'll cut those apart and be right back with you. All right, so I wound up with lots of these nice little rectangles with the elastic on, and we've got a whole pile of them here, and they're all cut apart, and now we're ready to start really structuring the mask. So what I'm going to do is make sure that my elastics are inside. I'm going to fold right sides together. And I'm actually going to start, put these over here by me. I'm going to start feeding these through the machine. I'm going to start with the hemmed edge first so that I can get that fairly even. And I'm going to make this back to that 1/2 inch seam. I'm going to have the edge of my fabric sticking out just a little bit on to the right of my presser foot. I'm going to press down. I'm going to back stitch. This is going to be the bottom edge, so I'm going to back stitch. It's okay if you over stitch that a little bit, but I'm going to make sure that's back stitched because that's going to get a lot of tugging and pulling with lots of times. Hopefully, many, many times this will be used. So I'm going to just zip down the edge here. When I get to the bottom, I'm going to back stitch. And then I'm going to be ready to butt my next, whoops, where are those scissors? There we go. I'm going to butt the next one up. And some of these threads I'm going to have to snip if it makes a little tension there. So I folded my next piece right sides together. And I have the hem edge. And I'm ready to just butt that up. I'm going to feed it right in after the last one. Back stitch. And you can see how this becomes a pretty nice, speedy method. I'm just going to keep that going until I have all 12 of my masks sewn on one side and then the other using the same method. All right, I've created this kind of cool, like, Tibetan prayer flag kind of a thing going on with all of these masks in tandem, and I'm going to keep them like that because it's easier. I don't have to go finding them after they've fallen off the floor, something like that, and I'm just going to go down the other side of all the masks and do exactly the same thing. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we have all our nice little sewn rectangles, 12 of them, and now we get to turn them around and they start to look like a mask. It's kind of fun. Give each side a little tug to pull the elastic out. And now we're going to put the nose clips in. And what we're going to do is just take one of our clips that we've straightened, and we're going to tuck it into the top of where the folded edge of the mask is. And we're just going to hold it there. And I'm going to start top stitching. Actually, we're going to start right there. And I'm doing that 1/2 inch size seam again. Put my needle in. I'm going to start on the end. And I'm going to back stitch. And again, you may pick fabrics and thread that go together a little bit better, but I want you to see this. So I'm holding that paper clip right here. And I'm just going to stitch along. And I'm going to feel where that metal is going to slide right to the left of my stitching line. Or right to the, sorry. It's going to go right to the right of my presser foot. And I'm just going to leave it in there like that. And I'm going to sew all the way to the end. And I'm going to back stitch here. And I'm going to do the same thing again and again and again. So I'm going to start this off. I'm just going to not even clip my thread. I have my needle in the highest position to pull the thread out. I'm going to do the same thing, position my fabric, stitch, do a back stitch. I can take a few stitches before I put this clip in. I'm going to snuggle it up against the fold. And I'm just going to sew right past it. I'm going to let the fabric and the machine work together. And just leave it up there in the little tuck. And we'll do some back stitching in a minute to secure that in place. Back stitch again. Put my needle up in the highest position, get that one out of the way, and you can see that I'm creating my assembly line this way to get those nose clips in. So I'm going to finish these up and be back, and we'll do a few stitches to secure that in place. Okay, now I have this kind of happy little clothesline effect of a bunch of masks with wire in one side. So now we want to secure that so that the wire stays in place. So just feel where the ends of the wire are in the middle of the mask. Leave them attached, and that's going to help you go a little quicker. Holding it like this, it's easier for me to hold it steady and go back and forth. And I want to end in the middle so that I don't have these little raw edges on the top and bottom of this thing. That'll become more frayed more easily after many washings. So what I'm doing is I'm holding my fabric in there, and I'm going forward and back and forward and back, and I'm stopping in the middle. So can you see that that last stitch comes out right there? Okay, so we've got some thread trimming to do later, but that's good for now. And make sure that that wire is completely out of the way, and you're just going to back stitch. Oops, you're going to not worry about that being too far, because the folks that get these are going to be darn grateful. And you know, this is really helping me burn off some extra nervous energy and that kind of thing. I want to leave a little space so that this has room to move around in here to kind of custom fit someone. So I'm going to make sure now my wire's on the left side of my presser foot, and I'm going to give a few stitches forward, some back, and top stitch over that again, and call that good. Whoops. I mean, put on some good music. You're doing something for somebody else, but you are also putting some of your creative energy to good use. So I'm just going to turn this whole long strip. Here, I'll start with this guy that escaped early. Now I want to create the pocket in the bottom. This is way too open, so I want to close that in. And so I'm just going to sew about 3 inches. I'm going to sew in on both sides on the top stitching line, or the hem line. So I'm going to start back, and I'm going to come in. I'm just going to go into about here because I want to leave a pocket there. Okay, I'm going to put my needle in the most uppermost position, which will mean this is sticking out, the little thread guide, and I'm just going to go over here, and I don't need to cut threads. I don't need to mess around with that. I'll be doing plenty of thread cutting. I'm going to back stitch a little, couple of stitches, maybe 3, and come here to the end. Back stitch again, and get my needle up so my thread becomes loose when that needle is in the uppermost position. And now I have my whole string of masks that I can do the same thing over and over and get these suckers done and out where they can do some good. So about there. It doesn't have to be an exact science. So along with this video, you'll see some slides that'll give you some ideas for other materials that you can put in here for extra protection. And if the hospitals have some of that available, they can do the same. All right, so I'm going to just keep doing that, and I'll be right. All right, so I have sewn all of those little pocket openings, and what I'm doing now, I want you to see that I'm trimming these. Now I'm cutting these apart, but I'm going to be more efficient, and on this cut of the thread, I am going to trim it close to the fabric, so I don't have to go back and trim a tiny little piece later. There'll be plenty of thread trimming, and that might be after the glass of wine. There's one more step to this. We need to make the tucks that are going to make this a form-fitting mask. And we, again, can use our speed sewing method and sew those in tandem. So I will see you shortly. All right, so I am going through before my last step, which is the tucks. I'm trimming off any of these threads that are left over from our speed quilting, or God, that's habit, speed sewing, like this one. So that I don't want anything pulling. I want this flat when I go in to make my tuck. All right, so I have 12 masks with a pocket for the nose piece and just enough room to slip in another filter down here if we have it. So now we need to make the tucks that are going to make this more form-fitting and more practical, to fit different size faces. So we're just gonna pull out, make sure that this seam is pulled out, and I'm gonna fold over again right about a 1/2 inch, just about a 1/2 inch down from that first top stitching line. And if you're a pinner, pin. I pin less and less. So to me, that's just another step. It's not really necessary. Okay, pardon me. So we're going to start up here right on our, just a little below that stitching line. Actually, I'm going to just reinforce. I'm going to go all the way to the end to reinforce that elastic again. And then I'm going to come down and catch that tuck, and I'm going to top stitch over that tuck again, and that's where I'm going to leave it so I can get my next tuck. And these don't have to be scientific. We're just going to try to make them relatively the same on both sides. There's tuck number 2, and it's going to get back stitched. And then tuck number 3 down here at the bottom. And we're going to sew all the way to the end and back stitch. Whoops, I'll probably, there we go, and back stitch over that. All right, so then I can start doing my speed quilting method of sewing right through to the next one. I'm going to back stitch to start. That gives me a space to start with my first tuck. I'm going to tuck that down. I'm going to back stitch over it. Leave my needle in so that it's secure. Take another tuck, fold it over, sew past it, back stitch over it, and do my last tuck. So you can see this is going to save mountains of time. And then I'll just sew to the end, and you can do your last back stitch there. So I'm going to continue on down the line and get all 12 done on one side, and when it's time to flip them over, I'll show you how we do that. All right, I wanted to zoom in a little bit and show you how to get these tucks in correctly. This is creeping over here as I sew, so I'm going to get back over. Oops. I want this lined up just so that it's this fabric's a little bit to the right of my presser foot. And I've started my stitching. I'm doing my back stitching again. And I'm going to leave my needle up toward the top edge of this piece so that I can get my first tuck kind of tucked in up near the top of the mask. And I'm going to sew down over that tuck and back stitch and leave my needle up there, so I've got room to work and squeeze together another tuck and back stitch over that one, and then put my last tuck down here toward the bottom and sew on through. So it's, there we go. All right. So I have all these masks with one side tucked, all sewn together. And I will be sewing all those at once, but I'm just gonna grab these two just to show you. So super important that we have our opening down here and the folds are facing the bottom of the mask. The opening's at the bottom and these folds are all facing the bottom. So I've got now the opening, that's the bottom of my mask now. I can see my folds are all facing, fold toward the bottom. And I'm going to start again with a back stitch, of course. And I'm going to use my presser foot now. I'm going to make sure I've got my foot off of the feed. And I'm going to use my presser foot to help guide these little tucks. So I'm going to fold it over, that 1/2 inch fold, tuck it under the presser foot, and sew it in place, and back stitch. And while I've got that needle at the top edge of that fold, I'm going to make another tuck and tuck it right under the presser foot and fold and sew over it and back stitch. And while my needle is up here, I'm going to leave the needle down so it steadies my fabric, and I'll make the last tuck and tuck it up under there. Now, you may certainly pin and iron and do all those wonderful character building exercises, but for the utilitarian use and just the speed that our fellow humans need these, I am not doing that. So I'm going to continue and finish these up and trim all my threads, and what we're going to have is a nice mask, and our professionals will fold this in half when they get them and make a place for their nose and have a lovely fashion statement mask. So even if you just make these for your friends and family, maybe your neighbors, it's a start. This is the adult size, and then I'll have on embedded in the video, there'll be directions and there'll be some other materials you can use to fortify these, and I just hope that was really helpful. So we can get through this thing together, and I hope that you find a way to smile through it and be grateful, and just hang in there.